Okay, so let's talk about how money and power influence the mainstream media. Now, most of these things I'm saying here are not original ideas. They come from the ideas of Chomsky and Herman from the book Manufacturing Consent, but I'm going to explain them slightly differently, and it's just something to think about when you are consuming mainstream media news. Okay, so first things first. Most of the mainstream media are large for-profit corporations. And because of that, that means that they have a mandate to return profits to their investors. And they also have very large capital requirements to operate so that they can be large-scale corporations and reach the mainstream media. So their profit collection is extremely important for them to stay in business. So this need for profits influences their editorial selection through a few different mechanisms. And one of those mechanisms is the news is going to filter out stories, topics, and guests that would just directly lead to a loss of revenue or a loss of investor confidence that could lower the stock prices. Okay, another situation is that most of the mainstream media's revenue is collected from advertisers. So this means that if the news fails to get eyes on the screen or eyes on the page, those advertisers will pull their ads. That means less money and less profits, and there you go. So this has a tendency for the news to want to keep those advertisers happy. So in one way, it leads to sensationalism and lots of contentious reporting, just issues that maybe are sensational and hot button issues, but don't really improve the understanding of politics or the economy to the citizens of this country, which we would think that the news should be doing. We hope that they're going to educate the populace. Otherwise, it's basically just entertainment or propaganda. So, what's important to keep in mind is that means that the news has to keep these advertisers happy, and it's extremely important for the news to maintain high ratings and large market share of their target audiences. That way, they can ensure the advertiser's revenue. All right, so this process has a tendency to distort the news towards both the advertiser's political and economic prejudices and also just entertainment value and titillizing stories that kind of reach the lowest common denominator. All right, so let's look. All right, so that's one major problem. All right, here's another one. The effect of big money on mainstream media creates preferential access. And since certain large institutions and investors and their spokespeople more or less subsidize the media either directly or indirectly, they get privileged access to the news reporting. And the stories they tell are going to be based on those groups' talking points. And this also has the effect of marginalizing alternative sources of information and conflicting interpretation of facts. So the privileged have access to the media and it allows them, the groups that are powerful and connected, to control both the content of the news, so which facts are presented and which ones are not presented, and also the way those facts are framed. So it's able to put their ideology in a positive light and demonize any competing concerns. Okay, so another way this works is that these large organizations and powerful groups can complain and go after the media if it persists in reporting stories that don't fit with the power elites' ideology. So they can threaten lawsuits, they can threaten pulling advertising revenue, they could threaten boycotts, things like that, that would just negatively affect the profit margins of the news media, and the news will have to give into this eventually and change what they're reporting. So one of the problems with this is this tactic basically eliminates facts, opinions, and public concerns that do not fit with the elite ideology. So this is kind of the structure that's happening in the mainstream media through the influence of money and power, and it allows them to filter the news in a way that pretty much makes it useless to most people. It's basically entertainment or sensationalism or just pure propaganda that supports the power and the controller's ideology and message. So, if you're looking for information, education, and understanding, this may not be the best place to get it from. You need to take all this information with a grain of salt and look for competing arguments. So one concept that the news likes to put off is that they're fair or balanced or objective, but in some cases it's better just that everyone gives their opinion and we know where their opinion's coming from. We know why they're saying it. We know what their conflicts of interest might be or what their agendas are, and then we can decide if we agree with that or not. So the news hundreds of years ago used to be much more opinion and editorial based, but now that it's become this sort of mainstream machine, it's been spun in a way that it's supposed to be objective and open to all things. But as we can see, there's lots of filtering going on, lots of things being excluded, lots of opinions being marginalized, and the framing of the news is generally always tilted towards the interests of the powerful and the owners of those media outlets. So just keep that in mind when you are when you're listening to the news or reading the news in the mainstream media. Okay, thanks.